Hey, how you guys doing? Eric at Socal Cigars here. Well, I'm kind of doing a little impromptu video that I never in a million years thought I would be doing. Out of all the topics on cigars, this is not one I thought I would be covering. But I have to admit, it happened to me. One of the two dreaded things in the cigar world happened to me. What are those two things that we all dread? Mold and cigar beetles. So last night, I got a shipment of cigars in that I had ordered online through a group I'm in. I opened my humidor, opened one of my drawers, and in the very back of one of my drawers was a moldy cigar. Yes, I'm also shocked. Shocked as you guys probably are. So, not something I expected. You know, I've had cigars for 20 plus years in some fashion, whether it be humidors or desktop humidors, acrylic jars, you name it. Never, ever have I had beetles, mold, cigar splitting, none of that stuff. So I was pretty surprised. So bottom line is, like everything in life, when you are confronted with a problem, it's always how you react to the problem is the key. So after a couple minutes of like shock and awe, I went right into, okay, what am I going to do here? My first instinct turned out to be right after doing some research. My first instinct was to pull the cigars out, pull the drawer out that had the mold in it, and to wipe it down with like isopropanol, like rubbing alcohol. And after doing some research online, that happens to be most people's recommendation, and especially people that I trust that seem to know what they're talking about. Be careful though, because I've seen people say everything from just forget about it, don't worry, it's no big deal, to pour bleach all over everything. So you gotta remember, even with me, I mean, it doesn't matter who it is, take stuff with a grain of salt, use your brain. Make sure that what you're hearing sounds like it makes a lot of sense. So in the end, that's what I did. I pulled the cigars out, pulled the drawer out, and then so tonight I'm going to go upstairs to my office where I have my humidor, and I'm going to pull all of my cigars out and pretty much clean out my humidor to where I feel more comfortable. Given that I've got the refrigerator type, it's got a fan in the back, so given that there's been mold, that means there's mold spores, that means the fan's been blowing them all over the place. I don't think it's a huge problem. I don't think I'm going to have a recurrence. But I definitely want to make sure to wipe out the interior, wipe out the drawer with the rubbing alcohol, and then I'm going to basically just wipe off all my cigars manually with like a cloth. And I think that should be okay. I did go online. I did look at some pretty reputable people that are, I would almost borderline call them like cigar scientists. There's some guys that I kind of watch and look at their information online that actually manage huge humidors for like corporations, like companies. So these guys know their stuff, and I guess the only thing that made me feel good about it is they all had the same problem at one point or the other. They all said, I don't know, out of the blue, I opened it and there was mold. I don't know how the hell it happened, but there it was. So don't feel bad. That being said, though, I did want to figure out what changed in my routine that caused this or created an environment where the mold could produce like it did. And, the only things I can really think of are two. One, because I don't think I introduced mold, because these were kind of isolated away from anything new. So I don't think that it was introduced. One thing I think is that I've been getting quite a few cigars lately, the last couple months, because I have access to a group online that I can get some kind of cool specialty stuff. So I know I've been increasing the amount of cigars in my humidor incrementally quite a bit in the last couple months. So that maybe caused a spike in the RH. I don't know. The temperature I know is not an issue because it's a refrigerated unit, so it's always at 66 degrees. The other thing, though, is I've been keeping those little Bovita packs that people have been shipping cigars with my shipments, like I tell you guys to do, because you can use them later in like your humidor. So I probably had 5 or 6 of those that I've just been throwing into my humidor, because if you leave them out, they just dry up, so that you might as well just trash them in the first place. So I probably had 5 or 6 in there. So I think between all the cigars I've been loading in and extra humidity that's been in there, that could have caused this increase in the humidity. The only odd part of it where I'm kind of struggling is that both my hygrometers read, one was 69, one was 72. Technically, you should never have a mold issue until you're well above 74. So I don't understand, unless my hygrometers are off, because it's been a few months since I've calibrated them. So I'm going to do that salt test. I'll probably do a little video on that so you can see how to do that. So that'll probably be one thing I do, is do the salt test to make sure that when it says 72, I can trust that it's really 72, because they do go off, they drift. So that's kind of going to be my plan. I'm going to basically take all my cigars out. I'm going to take all the shelving out. I'm going to wipe the inside out. I'm going to wipe all my cigars down, and then I'm just going to put it all back together. But my plan of attack is to stop keeping extra Bovita packs and stuff in there, and really watch my humidity. I'm going to try to keep it back to where I kind of wanted it anyway. It kind of crept up over time to 72. I like to keep mine more like around 65 to 67. So that's kind of maybe bad on me that I did let it creep up and didn't get it back down. Still don't think that was enough to cause this, but I'm going to just, I'm going to get that back down. So I'm not going to have this issue again. A couple things to think about. If you run into this problem, like I said, don't freak out. Just move forward and get it squared away. But when if you do go online, which you probably will, and you start doing some research, understand you're going to see a few things. Keep a sharp mind that you're not just going to follow what everyone says. Don't go pouring bleach on everything. Be smart about what you're going to do. Read people's comments and look at their videos and make sure that you feel like they really know what they're talking about and are doing things out of experience, not just, hey, I came up with this thought. That's one thing. So be careful of the advice you follow when you're trying to remedy this problem. The other thing is to understand you're going to see things where people have a debate over mold versus plume, or sometimes they call it bloom. That's completely different than mold. That is a very rare occurrence on cigars where some of the oils crystallize and it looks like little white specks on your cigars. It actually means your cigar is like perfect condition. Most people that think it's plume, it's really mold. So be very cautious to think that it's just harmless plume, because it probably isn't. It may be, but again, if you're going to always follow error on the side of caution, it's probably mold. Okay, so you'd have to have quite the ideal scenario in your humidor and really high-end cigars to produce plume. So that's another thing to watch out for. The other thing is to really understand that you'll see people online that literally just take their cigar covered in mold and brush it off with like a paintbrush. And they're like, yeah, that's fine. Understand that it's not so much the mold you see, it's the mold you don't see. For example, I have kids. So, I'm always cognizant of what's healthy, what's not healthy. One time we had some mold on a slice of bread in a loaf of bread. And I was thinking, I'm going to trash the whole thing. I'm like, well, I'm going to go look and see, do you really need to trash the whole thing or just maybe throw out the pieces that are bad? My instinct is to trash everything because I'm that way. I mean, if milk's within a week of expiration, I won't even drink it. I hate that stuff. So by looking at that online, they basically said if one slice of bread has mold on it, everything is coated in mold. Every pore of that bread has got mold in it. You just can't see it. So their recommendation was always trash the whole thing. So when you see these people just brushing a cigar off with a little toothbrush or a little paintbrush, I wouldn't do it. I mean, I guess if it's a $300 cigar that you got for some crazy reason and it's just the most bitchin' cigar on the planet and you want to save it, I guess long as you don't see, from what they say, as long as you don't see mold in the foot of the cigar where you see the tobacco rolled up, from what I understand, it may be okay. So you can just, I guess, wipe the outside off. Bottom line is that there's still mold there. Once there's mold on it, the spores are there whether you can see them or not. So, again, do what you want. Do the research. Look at other people's opinions. For me, I don't think there's any cigar I have that is so awesome that I would risk smoking a moldy cigar, even if there's mold I can't see. You know, at least for me, the research shows that the mold's there, you just can't see it. It's still there. And the issue is that a lot of molds are okay. You know, again, there's mold in the air all the time. If you tested your house right now, as clean as your house might seem, there's mold in the air. We breathe in it all the time, just like we breathe in pollen. There's mold inside and outside of your house. It's everywhere. It's part of our life. The problem is the type of mold it is. So they're like black mold, obviously, as most people know, is really harmful in your house. So that, you know, that's where they're coming in hazmat suits to get the stuff out. With cigars, if you get any kind of mold that looks kind of blue, apparently that's extremely toxic to humans. So that's why I'm saying that even if you brush off all the visible mold, I'm not trusting that there's not mold inside that cigar or still on the outside that you're just not seeing. So I don't think it's worth the risk, in my opinion. But do what you want. I'm by no means the authority. I'm just telling you how I would do it and what I'm going to do. I'm dumping them. So anyway, the plan now is I'm going to go upstairs. We're in my office where my humidor is, and I'm going to start the process of taking out all my stuff so I can get this all cleaned and put back together. Glad it's Friday because at least I can stay up tonight doing it, and I've got the weekend to finish screwing around with this. I will probably tie this in. I'll probably put some pictures up while I'm, talking so you can see what I'm talking about. Up there, I'll probably shoot a little bit of video so you can see the cigars and the condition I found them in, because they all look a little different. So there's different kinds of mold it looks like on them. So anyway, I'll let you see what I found. Also, I just happened to get another drawer in, so I was actually going to probably video another update on my humidor, but I'll just tie this in. I actually wanted to get rid of one of my shelves and add another drawer because they're so much more efficient. So that'll be part of this. But that's kind of it. I'm going to go upstairs and I'm going to start the tedious process of eradicating mold from my humidor. Rockin' Friday night. Okay, so I'm upstairs. Sorry, I'm going to use kind of a flashlight too to see if I can get this to show really good. The lighting's kind of bad. It's getting to be nighttime here. So anyway, here's the cigars that are in question. Here's the drawer that's in question. So that corner back there, right here, that's where I had the cigars. I don't really see any residue, but like we've just talked about, I know there's mold spores there. Arguably, these aren't that bad. I know they're not good cigars anyway, so I'm not sweating it. These are actually already kind of falling apart. There's some cracks and stuff. These are really poor quality cigars, so I'm not too bummed about getting rid of them. So that's no big loss there. They've at this point probably caused me more grief than they're worth at all. So here's the cigars that are the problem. So as you can see, like on the end of that one, there's mold. There's mold on this. There's mold. See that white spot right there, that mold? There's mold all the way up that one. That was, I think, the worst one. Mold here. A lot of mold here. Look at all the mold on this. And on the top of this one too, the foot of that one. And then here's one of the worst things, is you can see all the mold inside the foot. And that's what I was talking about downstairs. That you really don't want that. That's really bad. So anyway, that's kind of the rundown. These are the cigars I was talking about. This is what's going to go in the trash. Arguably, I guess these ones I could wipe off and try to salvage them, but I already know they're not that great anyway, so I'm just going to get rid of them. I don't think it's worth it. I am going to pull out the rest of my cigars just so I can clean them all off. I just don't want to risk this problem getting any worse, so I would rather get the mold spores out of my humidor, and just in case there's any floating around. Anyway, that's the problem. These are the problem cigars, and I'm going to now start the process of getting these things in the trash and getting my humidor cleaned out. Okay, I am done. It took me about 2.5 hours to go through and get everything taken care of. I wiped down the interior with rubbing alcohol and a paper towel, and then I cleaned it back off with a microfiber cloth with distilled water. Every single shelf you see, every single cigar in my humidor, I wiped off with a cloth. And then the shelf that I had mold in, the drawer, I mean, I actually cleaned that also with the rubbing alcohol, just to make sure to kill any mold spores that might be in there. So anyway, another thing I did do, and I was gonna maybe update a different video, but it's only one drawer. There's really no reason to go into a whole video for one drawer add, but I did add another drawer. So instead of having 2 shelves and 4 drawers, I now have 1 shelf left and 5 drawers. I got the little hygrometer at the bottom and a hygrometer at the top, so I could just keep, see the difference between the top and the bottom of my humidor. Got my little heartfelt beads at the bottom there, which is what I use for my humidification. I've got it divided up. 3 of the 5 drawers are regular cigars, and 2 of the drawers, I think like this one, are infused cigars. The rest, are regular cigars. So anyway, that's the deal. It took a little while, but I feel confident that I've eradicated most of the mold spores that might be creeping around in there. I don't think I'm going to have a reoccurrence. I feel pretty good about going through it. I know it was a lot of work, and maybe it was overkill, but when it comes to mold and all the cigars that I have, and I've got some really nice Cubans and different cigars that I've gotten from Denmark and from Germany. The last thing I want to do is lose some of these things that are kind of irreplaceable to me. So it was well worth spending a couple hours to clean this thing out, so that I feel comfortable that I'm kind of good to go here. So anyway, hopefully this was helpful. If you do run into a mold problem like I did out of the blue, don't worry about it. Just address it head on. Get the culprits out of your humidor, clean it up the best you can, and then I would basically look and see what maybe changed. Like I said, for me, I know my humidity went up a little bit. I added some cigars pretty quickly. Maybe there's a better way to do it in the future than just to throw them all in. Maybe I can, have a secondary humidor that I stage them in before I put them in this one. Anyway, something to think about. But again, hopefully this was helpful and gives you some ideas on how to tackle the mold issue that I hope you never get. So anyway, Eric at Socal Cigars. Like, subscribe, comment, ask questions, the drill. And I will see you on the next video. Have a good one.